I'm not the house of cards that falls down easily. Ooh, I'm strong enough to handle what you throw at me.
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I'm your host, Kristen Sunanta Walker. Just what are we going to discuss? The intimacy that is mental health. Let's continue to make it as comfortable as discussing brain health or heart health. This show has been on the air for several years and we have amazing co-hosts. And then we created a network of podcasters on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com, a place where every possible facet of mental well-being can be talked about openly. My show, after several hundred interviews, the format is this: intimate, deep, funny, touching, sometimes uncomfortable, but always vulnerable conversations with interesting people. The goal is to have you, our listening family, many of you who have become my good friends, feel as though you are listening in on private conversations. Thank you for tuning in and becoming part of this amazing journey with me, and now with our network of podcasters. Just knowing this podcast might be helping any of you realize you are not alone on this journey called being a human being makes doing this podcast worth every second.
After all, we promised we'd be cordial.
Hey everyone, this is Kristen Sunanta Walker, and we are broadcasting from the National Council for Behavioral Health's conference here in Washington, D.C., NatCon 2018. Actually, it's hashtag NatCon 18 this year. And I'm here with Cheryl Sharp. Cheryl, you work directly with the council. What is that about?
So I am an exclusive consultant for the National Council. So historically, I started with them in late 2010 and developed their programming around trauma-informed care, trauma-informed approaches, trauma-informed services. I left the National Council as a full-time employee a couple of years ago, but we've stayed very, very closely intertwined, and so my work is exclusively with them as a consultant, still doing work around trauma-informed practices and suicide prevention efforts.
So what does that mean? Because I've worked with MTM on electronic health record projects and things like that, and I know what it means to be that kind of a consultant for the council. So for you, is it online training, presentations? What is it that you're doing that is part of your consultancy?
So I'm on the road a lot.
I bet.
I think last year I did 40 trips on the road.
Okay.
And that's semi-retired.
Right.
So what happened was when I started at the National Council, there was no initiative around trauma. And as you know, folks heard this morning here at the conference, we heard from Brene Brown, and she gave a big shout out to that. And then, as I said, I just got through watching Modern Warrior, which is an amazing...
You walked in with teary-eyes for this
did.
interview. I thought, my God, she's nervous about me interviewing her.
No, it's not nerves.
Kidding.
I was just so incredibly touched.
Yeah.
When we think about the trauma that people experience. And I came to this work as a person of lived experience, my own trauma history, my own mental health challenges, and then finding my way through in a very different path than through behavioral health services. And what I wanted to be able to do when I came to the National Council, and what I was tasked with from our CEO, Linda Rosenberg, and Jeannie Campbell, was to help find a way to make trauma-informed practices real for our membership. That it wasn't some pie in the sky idea, and that there were really practical ways that people could change the way they worked within their agencies, that there was a place to take care of staff, because staff comes with their own trauma, they come with their own challenges, and to just help our membership make meaning of how do you do things differently. And where people show up and they feel safe. And as a trauma survivor coming through the mental health system, and having been in state psychiatric facilities, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And very highly re-traumatizing. And then when you go in, and I've received services in the mental health, started receiving services in the mental health system over 30 years ago.
But much has changed, but more change is needed.
So much has changed.
Yeah.
But holy cow.
I know.
and that experience kept me from being willing to seek help for years. So in terms of that quantifying for folks, what we did is we developed a process, an implementation process, through learning communities, which are some face-to-face, and some virtual learning and coaching with organizations. And when I was asked, what by leadership, what is trauma-informed care, and what they told me is, I want to know what it looks like, smells like, sounds like, what are people like, how will I know when I walk into an agency that it's trauma-informed. So that was my task, was to set about finding a way to make that meaningful. So what we did is we developed an organizational self-assessment based on the principles of trauma-informed care, and they have actually changed over time as well, that looked at the first moment of contact a person makes with an organization, looking at how we screen and assess people, how we listen to the voice of lived experience, thinking of people as the customer, that a service recipient is the customer. That's why everybody is there, and how to hear what it is that people say they need, to be able to listen to the backstory that shows up. We don't know what a person's story is, but we need to be listening for the backstory, and to really recognize that how people show up, the behaviors and sometimes the symptoms that people show up with are really just adaptations to trying to cope with trauma. And then looking at how we, in these 7 domains, how we think about the workforce. Every single person in an agency needs to be trained in trauma-informed care. It is not just about clinical practice.
Right.
Clinical practice is important, but you can't create sanctuary for human beings if every person within the organization is not involved in the process.
Right.
So that includes
administrative staff,
the
everyone.
Van driver,
Yep.
the person working in the cafe, every single the people in
Receptionist
accounting.
at the front desk. Yes.
Accounting and IT have a really hard time understanding.
They
what
really do, but yes, I
part
get
is.
it. Working with EHRs and mental health,
Yeah.
I get it. They have to care too and be informed
because
too.
they take care of everybody else.
Yep, absolutely.
And then being willing to look at compassion fatigue and organizational wellness, looking at how people experience safety. So it's not just the physical safety and the emotional safety and the psychological safety. There's also the moral safety of the organization. When I think of Sandy Bloom's work, which I really like a lot, when we talk about moral safety, it's like if you've got a mission, vision, and value statement, you better be living up to it.
Right.
And if you're not, you better be right on top of correcting whatever it is that's gone wrong.
Right, exactly. Cheryl, why mental health, and why did you specifically go into trauma-informed care?
Great question. And it's a long story, and
We'll do another show, but you can give us the high-level version.
So, as a person of lived experience, that was not, I did not have my needs met in the mental health profession. I was doing something totally different. I was doing commercial real estate.
Right.
Years and years ago, and I had this vicious loop of suicidal thinking, suicidal behavior, in and out of hospitals. And, there was lots of medication. I was on disability as a young adult, and then also moving into middle age, full disability, grand total of like 14 years, and nothing was working. And I was working hard at trying to get well, but I was not getting well. And I had an opportunity to go to a program that was not affiliated at all in the mental health system. It was actually a personal retreat. And in that program, and I didn't know I was actually going there for some work stuff, I thought.
Yeah.
And part of it was to go through the program to see if it would pair with another program that I was working with. And as a result, it was one of those things that just was completely life-changing for me.
Right.
In all the work that I had done, no one had ever asked me what happened to me. No one had ever asked me about my story. And as my story gently unfolded and I began to be able to go in deeper and deeper and deeper into who I was and what my history was, it helped me understand that all of the times people were asking me what was wrong with me, and telling me how fragile I was and how incapable of getting well I was, that those were lies, and that there was a Cheryl underneath all of that.
Right.
That looking at the past trauma and looking at my story allowed me to kind of pull away the layers to see what was really, who was I really? And I had an opportunity to kind of rebuild myself from the ground up. And I think that's why listening to Brene Brown this morning was so touching for me, because it's like my greatest strength was my vulnerability.
Absolutely.
And that's also what I have brought to my work. What I bring to my work is I come. What you see is what you get when I'm on that stage.
So tell us about what's your educational background?
So until I did this program, I had dropped out. I'd gone into state psychiatric hospital and had to drop out of college. So in my early 30s, I had the opportunity to go back to school, and I have an undergrad in psychology, an undergrad in women's studies, and then a master's in social work.
Okay. Interesting.
And through my work, so I take the science of trauma, the brain science of trauma, and everything that we know about what works for people, and weave my story and my life into that to try and help make it more real, and to also help people understand it. That the playing field is level. We all come at our lives from human experience. And that there's no them and us. There's not the treater and the person.
On so many shows. There is not. So many times I've been on news shows, or I'm speaking to someone that's in the mental health field on the periphery, and they say, "Well, those people," and I say, "There are no those people." They were even talking about politics. Well, those people, that are working on our behalf on Capitol Hill, they're not mentally ill. And I said, really, do you think that any of those people take a Xanax or are on an SSRI or aren't traumatized in their job? I mean, do you think that well, yeah, I do, and a lot of them that I know take Xanax or go to counseling, or they are taking an antidepressant. I said, well, then they're part of those that you're talking about.
When I met my now deceased husband, it was a first or second date, and they always tell you don't tell anybody your whole story on your first or second date. And it was like, you know what? But I don't want anybody to get involved with me that they don't know this stuff about me, because it's too scary.
Yeah.
And so I'm telling him this, and he goes, I've never met anyone with a mental illness. And I went, well, it's not exactly the way I think about it, but there are 4 kids in your family.
Yeah.
And you've been, because he told me he'd been on antidepressants going through his divorce, and he had a sister that had extreme anxiety. It's like, yeah, it's all us people.
It's such I know people I even had someone yesterday come in here, a very nice person that's a owner of a treatment center, and say, I don't need to talk to Mental Health News Radio. Addiction is not mental health. And I said, very nicely, I said, well, that's part of why we're here, to help educate people to realize that substance abuse and addiction disorders are part of mental health.
I love Kevin Hines' T-shirt that says "Brain health is sexy." It doesn't say what kind of brain health. It's just brain health.
Right. I I say mental health is sexy. I actually had an addiction specialist tell me that they would love to be a part of my network, because we have 25 different podcasts on our network, all talking about different aspects of mental health. And he said, well, I'll be on your network, as if I was going to just hand him a key anyway. But you have to change it from saying mental health, there's too much stigma. And I said, well, we're not the right fit for you, A, and B, that's the point.
Absolutely. So the reason that I do this work is I know that people get well.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend whose initials behind her name are ITE. I am the evidence.
Yeah,
and
I need that.
I am the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
People get well. I've had an amazing life. I've had an amazing career. I do this work because it gives me tremendous joy.
It's your passion. You would do it for free if you could live off of the air.
Don't tell the National Council that.
No. But I mean, you would be doing something in this.
Absolutely. When I speak all over the country, when I speak, somebody always comes up and will say, "Your story just changed my life."
Yeah.
Not me. But the hearing that they are not broken, that they are not damaged.
They're not alone.
They're not alone. They don't have to recover anything, but they can go and get the life that they want.
Absolutely.
It's the power of the human spirit. If I think back to where I have been, mm-hmm. and some of the days that I would be sitting in a session and my head would be laying on the table because I couldn't lift it up. When I remember those days, I know what it feels like, but I also know, when I wake up in the morning, I have a lovely house on a lake, and I wake up in the morning and I look out, and that sun is coming up. It's like, I am so happy I'm here,
right.
Even when it's hard.
Yeah, it's interesting, and when you have severe trauma as a child, you're peeling back those layers over a lifetime. It's not something that you go to therapy for a month and then you're quote unquote cured. There's stuff that I'm peeling back, and I'm 48 mm-hmm. from sexual abuse in mm-hmm. childhood that I'm just now being able to get to. And I've been in therapy a long time, in different types of therapy. So I think that's part of what people don't understand as well, because we're we'll just go get it fixed. And that's not how it works. It really doesn't work like that.
I think I've pretty much got it fixed, but there's still times that my car needs to go in for a tune-up.
A tune-up. That's what I mean. We're saying the same thing. Yeah.
And for me, where I am right now today, in
mm-hmm.
this moment, having just come from the Modern Warriors performance, my husband died 3 years ago, and that's been a tremendous
grief.
It's
and
a
loss.
huge grief and a huge loss, and I've done so well through it. And it's still
a lot of tools in your tool bag to help you.
I have a lot of tools.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it just bubbles up and it's there, and then you see the link to something else. I have 2 children in the Marine Corps right now. So as I'm sitting there sobbing, I'm thinking of my 2 children in the Marine Corps. They're 19 years old, and then my husband who died of Agent Orange, and how intertwined those 2 things are.
Right.
And sitting there and going, okay, well, I don't even have a tissue. I've got a napkin, and it was almost an ugly cry.
I've done those live on the air, yes.
And I just said, you know what? There is no shame in these tears. I am so proud of my boys. I'm so proud of my husband, and I'm so proud of me of being able to sit here and just be me,
right?
And to have that level of vulnerability and not to be afraid of it, and
to not be afraid of the greatest expression of your true self. Absolutely.
And I don't give a damn what anybody else thinks.
Yeah. Just for our listeners to know, if you hear a large, we have Ramses, the service dog, in the room with us, and every so often he has to take a deep breath, and we are not going to edit that out. So
good.
Well, Cheryl, thank you so much for agreeing to stop by. I know you're busy at the conference, but I want to make sure that everyone knows Cheryl Sharp is with the National Council for Behavioral Health, which is thenationalcouncil.org. That's where they would be able to find you, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you so much for having me. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Absolutely. And of course, have to give a shout out to our sponsors who help keep us on the air: mygenetics.com, zencharts.com, and copenotes.com. And as always, give some love to livin.org with Sam Webb. They're doing amazing things in Australia with suicide prevention and awareness. Thank you, listeners.
Without good intentions, I heat up and act on my emotions.
Thanks so much for listening to Mental Health News Radio. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, and hundreds of other podcast apps, or you can visit our website at mentalhealthnewsradio.com. If you have a question or would like to be a guest, become a podcaster on our network, or join the amazing organizations that help keep us on the air, please email us at info@mhnrnetwork.com. Get ready for that special goodbye from our resident therapy dog, Miles, and a special thanks to Emily Sohn for letting us use her incredible song, Cordial, for our podcast music. Listen to the full song on SoundCloud at emily.sonne.
Don't be surprised when I don't hate on you. After all, we promised we'd be cordial. Sometimes in you I can fight it.
Good boy.
Summer is here. The sun is out, and so are you. When you go, take along a clever little app called Audible so you can listen to the stories you love while doing the things you love outside. A walk, a run, the pool, or the beach, all better with Audible. For just $14.95 a month, you get a credit good for any audiobook from the world's largest selection. If you don't like it, exchange it anytime. So get outdoors with Audible. Start a 30-day trial and your first audiobook is free at audible.com.
My mom has a permanently stuck in the 80s thing. We're talking teased up feathered hair, acid wash denim jacket, and shoulder pads. So many shoulder pads. But I just got a new phone from AT&T, and check this out. I got a second phone to gift to my mom. So now she can finally ditch her old one for a phone that can actually stream all the 80s shows she loves.
Come into an AT&T store and find out how to get a smartphone on us. AT&T, more for your thing. That's our thing. See store for details.